It was a dark and stormy Friday night, and Sarah had just finished her late shift at the office. The rain battered against the windows, casting eerie shadows throughout the dimly lit workspace. Most of her co-workers had already gone home, leaving her alone in the cold, creaking building. As she gathered her things and prepared to leave, she heard a faint whisper coming from the hallway. Startled, she froze in place, straining her ears to listen. It sounded like someone calling her name, but there was no one else in the office. The only source of illumination came from the flickering fluorescent lights above, making the office seem like a haunted maze. Summoning her courage, Sarah ventured into the hallway, her footsteps echoing ominously. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispering grew louder, more urgent. It seemed to be coming from the office at the far end of the corridor. She pushed open the door and was greeted by a chilling sight. The office was bathed in an eerie, greenish light, and her computer screen flickered with strange symbols and distorted images. The whispering was now a cacophony of voices, some begging for help, others hissing malevolently. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to make sense of this real scene. The office had been empty when she left earlier, and there was no logical explanation for the bizarre occurrences. She tried to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. Desperation washed over her as she realized she was trapped in a nightmare. The whispering voices grew louder, closing in on her from all sides. She could see shadowy figures moving in the periphery of her vision, lurking just out of sight. Terrified and with nowhere to run, Sarah stumbled backward and fell to the floor. The voices seemed to converge on her, their words unintelligible yet filled with malice. She closed her eyes and covered her ears, hoping to block out the horror around her. Suddenly, as if by some unseen force, Sarah was lifted off the ground and thrown against the wall. The room's temperature dropped even further, and the voices grew deafening. It felt like an eternity had passed when, just as suddenly as it had all begun, the room returned to its normal state. Sarah found herself lying on the floor, shaken and bruised, but alive. The greenish light had vanished, and the whispering voices had ceased. The office was once again a mundane, empty space. Trembling, Sarah scrambled to her feet and rushed out of the office, vowing never to return. As she left the building, the storm outside had passed, leaving the night calm and quiet. But the memory of that horrifying night in the office would haunt her for the rest of her days, a chilling reminder that some places should remain abandoned after dark. Weeks passed since that horrifying night at the office, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her home. Strange occurrences had become a part of her daily life. Objects moved on their own, lights flickered, and she heard faint, ghostly whispers in the darkest corners of her apartment. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, the lights suddenly went out. Sarah fumbled for her phone and turned on its flashlight, casting eerie shadows on the kitchen walls. That's when she saw a ghastly figure standing in the corner of the room, its features obscured by dark, frozen with fear. Sarah could only watch as the figure slowly approached her. It moved with an unnatural, jerky motion, as if it was not quite of this world. Its whispering voice was back, more sinister than ever, murmuring words that chilled her to the bone. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah bolted for the front door, desperate to escape the malevolent presence in her apartment. But when she reached for the doorknob, it wouldn't budge. She was trapped. Just as he had been in the office that fateful night, the ghostly figure closed in on her, its breath cold against her neck. Panic set in as she realized there was nowhere to run. In a last-ditch effort to escape, she screamed, her voice piercing the oppressive silence of her apartment. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, and the figure vanished as if it had never been there. The front door swung open freely, and Sarah stumbled outside, gasping for breath.